Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mutahar. Did you guys know that the U.S. government actually just registered aliens.gov yesterday? Yeah. Apparently, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, yes, they were the ones behind registering aliens.gov. Now, there's been a lot of talk about aliens, those big, spooky beings that are far beyond our planet. And, before we begin, I want to start off by saying that I'm a realistic individual. I don't like jumping into insane conspiracy theories, but I do actually believe in aliens. I think aliens exist. And, I'm just one of those people that, one day I hope that we see first contact. At least I want to see an alien before I die. I know that's pretty unlikely. The universe is massive and huge. But I do believe that there's life outside our rock. I think to not believe that there's aliens outside planet Earth, or at least living things outside planet Earth, is kind of it's kind of a very pedestrian way to look at just how big and vast our universe really is, right? So a couple weeks ago, Obama was on a podcast with a Brian Tyler Cohen. You probably heard of him, and he actually had this to say. So listen closely.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
Now, that's a pretty wild answer to be giving, especially when you're talking about, shadow governments and deep states, when you involve that aspect into it. Now, again, I don't think that Obama was joking over here. There probably was some secret stuff that they don't even tell the President of the United States. I think that there's a lot of stuff that happens, especially when it comes to black projects and black operations in the U.S., that even the most powerful individuals at the top of the chain aren't necessarily privy to, whether it's for their own protection or the fact that they don't accidentally blab it outside, right? There's a lot of secret shit the U.S. government does. Now, obviously, this was brought up later by Donald Trump, the current president of the United States, and then the whole ball started rolling.
Attention this week, Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
The president can declassify anything that he wants to, so if you want to make an announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
So it's interesting. He's like, I don't have any opinion on it, but he shouldn't have given classified information. Also, I don't have anything to say about Ayla Mouse. Now, I think this is interesting. Obviously, the actual shit sparked up the question asked to the end. You're the president. You can declassify anything that you want. And there's a lot of information regarding UAPs, specifically, and UFOs, unidentified flying objects, that obviously the president can declassify. So the ball started rolling even further. Guess what? Apparently, on President Trump's Truth Social, he's like, based on the tremendous interest shown, I'll be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life. So we just jumped up. We went from UAPs, UFOs, to the mention of extraterrestrial life itself, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. So, immediately I'm thinking maybe this is a fucking distraction from a war that's going on, or the Epstein files, and the reality of it is, even the UFO people, who have been probably some of the funniest, in some ways unhinged people, have realized that you're probably looking at another distraction that's happening, right? For instance, on the UFO Reddit, they're like, hey guys, the UFO truth's gonna come down on alien.gov. And the first thing that people mention here is, plot twist, it's for deporting people. And to be fair, with a name like aliens.gov, I wouldn't even doubt if it has nothing to do with aliens. Probably to do with just illegal aliens, like illegal immigration, if you will, too. But a man who wants aliens to be, a man who wants, like me, to see an alien autopsy video. Actually, not an alien autopsy video. That would be grim. I don't want to see. The first sight of an alien is not dead that I want to see. An actual alien photo. Some grays walking around. I would hope that the government would release that. They probably won't. There's a 99.9% chance they probably won't. but I can still believe. You know, anybody that gives the UFO Redditors a bad choice, at least over here, they're like, yeah, it feels like we're jumping the gun here and speculating it's UFO related. It's been quite a jump from literally like 2 years ago when we went from, I'm not even joking, like 2 years ago, about a year or two ago, there were crazy things like the Miami Bayside Mall incident where cops just showed up, like the entire city's police force popped in over here. And obviously the explanation from the actual police is that there was a incident with juveniles popping off fireworks, they issued a code, and bam, all these cops showed up. But back then, you know, at least on the UFO Reddit, they were like, I don't know, maybe there are 50-foot shadow aliens walking around. And there was actual video analysis. You know, there were situations like the Las Vegas alien video where in the backyard, some people claimed to have spotted aliens that probably whipped on a cloaking device, and there was actually analysis being put into it by the alien community, the UFO community. Now, it's kind of just all grim. And you can't really blame them, right? In the last month, we actually did get some alien footage. And by alien footage, I mean UAP footage. There's been leaked Air Force video of UFOs, apparently in the Middle East. So I want to watch this with the team together over here. You can see that this is, again, more blurry, more like thermal photos from like what appears to be a United States MQ-2 Reaper drone, capturing what appears to be a UFO. So these three lights that are flying around, that's, I guess, what people are seeing as UFOs in the Middle East. And you can see they're kind of in a triangular pattern. Now, I've seen those triangular lights a million times over and over again. But some people have gone to debunking this and saying it probably could just be birds, for instance. Like, those are birds, those are UFOs. And because it's captured in an IR camera, those things would both flare up as, you know, they would just be lit up like this. Now, whether these are birds or unidentified flying objects, I don't really know. But the reality of it is, I don't think we're gonna know until the government decides to at least disclose more of this shit. So for instance, following things like the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, there's been an influx of reporting, but again, nothing really conclusive, or again, that gray alien photo that people like me are interested in that will finally seal the deal. If aliens have ever really visited us. Now, out of a lot of these reports with the AARO, one thing is important. If you read the 2024 actual report from the Pentagon, you can see that the AARO found no evidence that any USG investigation, academic-sponsored research, or official review panel has confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology. So remember, important thing, nothing that ever actually came out of this they could prove was, you know, out of this world, belonged to an alien species, right? The Covenant were not real. No alien yet. Now, of course, the second part is the AARO found no empirical evidence for claims that the USG and private companies have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. So that also means nothing crashed onto planet Earth that they were trying to figure out how it worked. AARO determined, based on all information provided to date, that claims involving specific people, known locations, technological tests, and documents allegedly involved in or related to the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology are inaccurate. So remember, again, this is not anything in the AARO is specifically for, again, UAPs, or again, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which probably amounts to, again, benign things that have been, investigated by the Air Force, spy balloons, just things that aren't identified. Could belong to another country, could belong to a random person throwing things up into the sky. Remember that. But it is interesting. Obviously, the UAPs should be disclosed, and given the fact that we're in March 2026 and we're reaching deadlines for, again, a lot of these organizations to identify and organize these UAP records, we should absolutely be seeing some information released this year. I don't know if the government's going to do it, but that's where we're at. This is the timeline. I told you guys this like months ago. There's supposed to be big alien information, big UFO information. It can either be absolutely nothing or it can be a lot. Time will really tell. But it seems like the government is putting a lot of effort into at least making the alien, researchers, the extraterrestrial researchers, the UFO community, they want to at least satiate them. And given their recent reveal of other files, I don't exactly have full faith here. But again, I will keep looking. But for the people that are interested in life outside Earth, there's been huge reveals and huge discussions where apparently all DNA, RNA, nucleobases were found on an asteroid called Ryugu. So samples from an asteroid that were collected and returned by the Japanese government show that all 5 nitrogenous bases, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and uracil, that make up all nucleic acids, the biomolecules that make life possible on Earth, were studied in an actual asteroid. Now again, I'm not somebody that claims to actually understand anything that I've read over here, but it sounds promising, right? It shows me that the building blocks for life could exist outside planet Earth, which again is kind of the positive sort of spin that one could apply here. Look, there's a lot of negativity in the UFO community. I think for the last 2-3 years when it comes to alien life, okay? I have been feeling the blue balls like most of the community over here, but I still choose to believe in life outside planet Earth. Now, this is where the story starts to take a bit of a turn, right? We talked about the governments and their disclosure for, again, aliens. We talked about the government basically registering entire domains for alien research. But we haven't talked about the weird disappearance of a Neil McCasland, who is an aeronautical engineer and a U.S. Air Force Major General, a retired individual that actually has decades of actual U.S. secrets all locked up in his head. So in the last month, he actually ended up disappearing. He actually disappeared basically out of nowhere, basically vanished within like an hour time frame. Nobody knows where he is. There's been an intensive, like concerted effort by the FBI to find him, where they subpoenaed literally 600 individuals and all their surveillance information, and so far, nothing has sort of come out of it. Now, the UFO community has taken this missing general and basically went above and beyond with connecting him to like possibly being missing because of the UFO, disclosure or again, possible UFO information coming out. So basically, according to, again, investigators, around 10 a.m. the day he went missing, he was seen talking to a repairman at his Albuquerque home. At 11 a.m., his wife left for an appointment, and when she returned 1 hour later, McCasland wasn't in the home. She reports him missing when he was still not at home just after 3 p.m. So again, usually I would expect that missing would be reported like a day after, usually a full 24 hours after you detected somebody missing, not just a few hours later. But again, ever since then, he was never actually detected. He was never found. Now, obviously, he talked about being in something of a mental fog, but of course, the actual law enforcement agents don't entirely jump into it because, again, he wasn't cognitively impaired. In fact, actually, for a man in his late 60s, hopefully he will see his 70s, he did not seem to be, mentally or at least physically unfit. So according to the sheriffs, he leaves his phone, glasses, and wearable devices at home. So phone, glasses, Apple Watch, all at home. And of course, ultimately, the wallet, a red backpack, a revolver, and a holster for a gun that belonged to McCasland were actually unaccounted for. So it seems like he took his ID, money, some backpack, and unfortunately a gun with him. And because he's been missing for so long, people have went from, people have started thinking really grim. Again, when people are missing for more than a few days, obviously that's a very traumatic period. It's very scary. But when they're gone for so long, you can only start really, unfortunately, thinking the worst. Now, because the UFO community has been attached so much to this, his wife has actually been pushing back against a lot of these conspiracy theories and a lot of these UFO things, simply because she doesn't believe, obviously, this has any sort of connection. So how did the UFO connection actually begin? So when it came to McCasland, right, basically he was responsible for billions of dollars of funds that were used by the Air Force Science and Technology Program, and he worked primarily at one of the most important bases when it comes to the UFO community, which is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Now, the reason why this base is important is that I believe there's like a special hangar here, like they call it Hangar 18, which is where like the actual subject of the Roswell crash was stored, allegedly, of course. Now, again, some people believe that this was where they tested UFO technology. This is where alien stuff is kind of held. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there's no real corroborating evidence that 100% supports it. However, there is a piece of evidence that connects, again, our general to the UFO community. And that information, ladies and gentlemen, comes from an email between John Podesta and Tom DeLonge, a former guitarist for Blink-182, who became a UFO conspiracy guy. So for instance, in this email that I have from WikiLeaks right over here, back in 2016, they actually do discuss General McCasland. So he mentions that he's a skeptic. Again, this is Tom DeLonge talking to John. He's not. I've been working with him for 4 months. I just got done giving him a 4-hour presentation on the entire project a few weeks ago. Trust me, the advice has already been happening on how to do all of this. He just has to say that out loud, but he is very, very aware, as he was in charge of all the stuff. When Roswell crashed, they shipped it to the laboratory at Wright-Patterson's Air Force Base. General McCasland was in charge of the exact laboratory up to a couple years ago. He not only knows what I'm trying to achieve, he helped assemble my advisory team. He's a very important man. And that comes from, again, Tom DeLonge. Now, obviously, McCasland's wife was saying that this is mostly him being an unpaid sort of contributor, a consultant, when it comes to him helping out Tom with, again, his UFO project, a book, a project of that nature. So it wasn't really something that, connected these people super deeply, as far as my research has sort of concluded. Now, one thing I can say with full confidence here is, obviously, General McCasland, I don't know if he was entirely connected to the UFO community or if he saw an alien body at some point in his life, but he was somebody that was super involved in some of the darkest U.S. secrets, especially when it came to the technology that the U.S. government had and still has, that is still far superior to everyone else. Remember, one of the most important things about these Air Force bases, when it comes to things like even Area 51, for instance, is when you take the alien stuff out of it, a lot of people that you talk to, a lot of people that have been on the record about this, presidents even, have kind of really just said that when it comes to a lot of these, Air Force bases, it's not so much aliens, it's actually more, again, U.S. aircraft technology. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, obviously when it comes to, again, the flight technology the United States government has, and in fact, the flight technology even the Soviets have, right? It all kind of traces back to things like Operation Paperclip, us digging out like Nazis all the way from Germany, putting them in places like NASA, for instance, putting them in a lot of these, projects where we learned how to make some of the best rockets, some of the best space technology out there. And it's this technology that we paid basically an arm and a leg and a whole bunch of ethics to grab, utilize, and basically puts us above and beyond the rest of the world. Like, there is a serious claim that obviously when you look at things like the B-2 stealth bomber, or I think it's the B-52, or no, the B-52 is old. It's the current stealth bomber, right? The one where people say if you see pixels missing in the sky, you're pretty fucked. When you start looking at aircraft technology like that and how good it really is from being so undetected and so deadly and devastating, it's that technology that sets the U.S. Air Force pretty much apart from the entire world by like literally 20 years, okay? Like if you look at military technology, anything that people like the general worked on, it was obviously like 20, 30 years beyond whatever civilians or even other militaries kind of had. So obviously for the US government, when he goes missing, it's scary simply because a man that has some of the most secretive information locked up in his noggin is somebody that obviously the FBI is super interested in finding, the US military, I would imagine, is super interested in finding. It goes far beyond aliens. It actually does in some way threaten the national security of the United States when a guy like this is actually unaccounted for. You can't work for decades, basically being the person that oversees some of the secret projects in the US and just fucking go missing out of nowhere. Okay, this is a very serious situation. And to be honest with you, what I'm mostly interested in here is not even the aliens. It's this man's actual safety. I really hope that, law enforcement find him alive, they find him well, they can bring him back to his wife, and, hopefully things can get resolved. That's obviously the most important part of this story. I hope nothing serious or dramatic has sort of happened. I hope that he hasn't taken his own life, considering the actual effects that were removed from his home. But obviously, going far beyond aliens, I care for his well-being first and foremost. And, whatever alien stuff people want to link him to, I think that goes far beyond at least the current crisis of the moment. Now, obviously, the individuals in the UFO community that are looking at this are also looking at this with a bit of an analytical lens as well. And one individual brings up a really good point, which was, ironically, McCasland left any device that could actually track him at home. To me, that's a huge red flag if it's abnormal behavior, and I actually do tend to agree. So the guy brings his wallet, brings his handgun, a backpack, but any device that could actually track his location, like a smartphone or obviously a wearable phone, which could actually capture you, which could actually be giving off a location signal, all of that doesn't actually show up on him. So there's a lot of things for me to wonder. It's like he went missing, but why did he just go missing? Especially when you look at the timeline of UAP releases, and again, the government wanting to disclose alien information for the world. Now, obviously, there's a lot of interest as well, too. I mean, there's a big movie coming out by Steven Spielberg, I believe, this year called Disclosure Day, which, again, from what I understand, covers like the entire story of like when the government discloses this kind of stuff. But again, I'm more interested in the reality of this situation. The reality is, obviously, when it comes to UFOs and aliens, I think people who believe in this kind of stuff are unnecessarily stigmatized. Look, there is actually life outside. Now, whether we've been visited, I don't exactly know. But what I do know is that the government isn't obviously telling us every single thing out there. If an alien crashed on this planet and the government was covering it up, I'm sure that the government would attempt to do so. But I do tend to find it hard to believe how long a cover-up like that would actually happen, right? Especially something as huge as alien stuff. I think that we're going to get like UAP, like a UFO disclosure, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be like thousands upon thousands of documents that basically just have the government identifying weather balloons, down the road, right? Identifying drones or spy like weather balloons or something, as opposed to like actually showing like actual photos of alien saucers, motherships, autopsies of aliens and alien bodies out there. But again, a man can believe, right? A man can attempt to believe it. And the other thing, obviously, is that, listen, if there were actually aliens, I don't think that they just land in the United States. This is such a massive conspiracy that I would find it really difficult for even other countries who probably also had alien visitors. I mean, if you just think of that logic out there. And all of these, countries come together and just keep massive secrets. It's already difficult for human beings to get along, but to get along on this one secret is kind of outlandish out there. I do really hope, obviously, at the end of all this, looking at the retired general that we just discussed, hopefully he gets found in a healthy state. And ultimately, when it comes to this UFO information, I really do hope that the government is honest and truthful about what there is, even though that maybe it's probably not going to be life. At the end of the day, the government promised disclosure. They promised huge alien information. So I guess it's time to see what the government has to show. But, man, I don't know. For me, the last big bastion is space. One day I want to actually see space. I wish I could go into it. Probably never going to happen. So hopefully maybe we might be able to see an alien before I die. Hopefully. I don't know. But things are accelerating, and that's a big story here today. So ladies and gentlemen, hopefully aliens.gov, next time I go to it, if I actually try going to it right now, hopefully the site will show me all the extraterrestrial life I want to see. And hopefully it has nothing to do with anything else. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it,